Hello and welcome to Spotlight. I am Comfort Musa, your host for Spotlight. On Spotlight, NAJATV is teaming up with Sisterspeak237 to tell you stories about individuals, communities, and issues that are often ignored in mainstream media narratives. Yesterday was Labor Day, tomorrow is World Press Freedom Day, and today we will be talking about the working conditions of journalists in Cameroon. Joining me on Spotlight today, we have the president of the Cameroon English-Speaking Journalists Association for the Center Region and publisher of the Newswatch, Ndi Eugene. Eugene, you're welcome to Spotlight.
Thank you, Komi. Thank you for having me.
And we also have a journalist. He's an independent journalist, Do Bertrand.
Thank you for inviting me.
And Do Bertrand works a lot with print media and online media platforms. Eugene, you are print, multimedia. You do a lot of things.
I am almost about all of it.
Yeah.
Print, multimedia.
Video productions and all that.
Yeah, I'll do all of it.
Yeah.
When I'm doing my freelancing, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I want to start by wishing both of you happy World Press Freedom Day.
Thank you very much, even though celebrating it in the context of COVID.
Eugene, happy World Press Freedom Day.
Happy. I take it from you, but I don't think that we're celebrating happily. Yeah, but I accept that. Thank you for wishing me happy World Press Freedom Day. But the context in which we find ourselves, away from the health issue, the pandemic, I don't think it is even a day that we should, in Cameroon, somebody should say happy World Press Freedom Day, and you are happily responding that thank you. I just responded because it came from you, though. Out of courtesy, I responded thank you, but I don't think that if it comes from some other person, I'm going to respond because I see no need.
Okay, but tomorrow journalists in Cameroon will join their counterparts all over the world to commemorate the day. Even if they don't, even if we are not celebrating, we will commemorate the day. Yep. And we're glad that journalists have a day like this where we can look at journalism and journalists and have certain reflections. Eugene, I see your hesitation with responding to Happy World Press Freedom Day. And you said it's because of the context. Can we just get into the context of journalism in Cameroon? Why is it not a happy commemoration?
Yeah, thank you. I think first and foremost, it's a day that we need to sit and look at what journalists are doing, what journalism is, how journalism is faring in the country, and then we look at the challenges. And when I talk about challenges here, I look at the law in Cameroon. The law does not, when it is called World Press Freedom Day, and if we are celebrating press freedom in a country where the press is not free, then it is just the same as not celebrating or not commemorating at all. Because in Cameroon, I will say, and I take responsibility, journalism and journalists are not free. I'm going to explain. First, the laws that we have in Cameroon makes it very, very difficult for a journalist to operate freely. So where is the aspect of freedom that we are talking about? We cannot be talking about freedom in a country where authorities use obnoxious laws as weapons against free press, where authorities think that a free press is an enemy to democracy, where authorities think that free press will be an enemy to a politician. I mean, it can't be a World Press Freedom Day in a country like this. In Cameroon, our country, in our context, away from the COVID pandemic that Do is talking about, why should I go out there to celebrate? Why should I go out to celebrate? Why should I go out to commemorate?
There is nothing to celebrate, because I hear you when you say the context, journalists in Cameroon are not really free. We
are celebrating freedom. Right. And to celebrate freedom, you have to be free. You need to have that freedom in order to celebrate freedom.
And you're saying you don't have freedom.
We don't have freedom.
Bertrand, how free are you as a journalist in Cameroon?
I don't think journalists are free in the country.
But you're free to do your work. You're telling stories.
There is a popular saying in the country or everywhere that you say the truth and it sets you free. But I'm afraid in the country, when you say the truth, it sets you up. So that is to tell you that there are things we see, and because of the laws that are in place, you are free to do your job. We operate in a very tight context. We're in a context where journalists who want to practice the profession as it should be, to want to hold power accountable for their actions, to want to investigate stories, you'll be targeted. It is either you're targeted with the use of laws, because, you know, in 2014, government passed an anti-terrorism law in the country, and this is a law that government can use to tag any journalist at any time as a terrorist. So with such legal instruments in place, you find it so difficult to want to say things which can even hold policymakers accountable, which can hold decision makers accountable.
Right.
Because, for example, you look at the security context that we have in the country. There is crisis in the far north. We have security challenges in the east and in the south. We have the crisis, the armed conflict in the northwest and southwest regions. Do you think journalists in these about 5 regions operate freely? They don't. Even covering the political uprising in the country, it's a problem. So it is very challenging for us to work.
Right.
But despite the challenges, we still try as much as possible to serve the public with the information that they need. But how can you do this when access to official information that can make you, that can permit you to do your job is, it's not in the country.
Yeah.
Information is not given to journalists. There is a lot of information hoarding. If something happens, for example, in the southwest or the northwest, related to, you know, security, state security, it will be very difficult for the Ministry of Communication to open up, to give you the facts as it is. Government will always say that investigations have been opened. Oftentimes, the results of these investigations are not made known. So, without such information, journalists are limited in holding power accountable in this country. So and if you want to go an extra mile, you do that at your own peril. And then now, for those of us who work in private media organs, you have a challenge because you as an individual, you might want to put your integrity, you may want to uphold your integrity, your credibility. You do the job, but as it goes, the owner of the media organ has the final say. You might do it and the facts are there, but you get it twisted. Where you work can get the story twisted.
Right.
Now you don't have any choice but to, you know, because of the economic situation where journalists find themselves, you're bound to, you know, follow the line.
So I'm getting the issues around access to information and the fact that you could be targeted because of some stories that you tell. And, you know, when you said the truth sets you free, when you speak the truth, it sets you free. But in Cameroon, as a journalist, if you speak the truth, it sets you up. So what stories are you telling, Eugene? What are some of the stories you're reporting on? What are you free to talk about?
Yeah, before coming to talk about the anti-terrorism law that Bertrand just made mention of, I want to first of all say that the penal code, the criminal procedure code of Cameroon punishes libel. In a country where we are talking about press freedom, a law is punishing libel. We are trying, for the years gone, at the level of even the Cameroon Association of English-Speaking Journalists and at the level of other associations, we have been clamoring for the decriminalization of libel. That hasn't happened. So you think even that basic is not given to journalists. Is it the anti-terrorism law that would let me free? Now, a journalist, as per the anti-terrorism law, can be termed a terrorist. And this depends on the appreciation of the person in front of you. I mean, maybe the judge, a police officer, or whoever is in front of you. Because the definition of a terrorist or act of terrorism in that law, which I have tried to even talk to those who master the law, I mean lawyers, they have been unable to come out because the definition of the terrorist by the law or an act of terrorism that makes you a terrorist. If they say this story you reported, this, and then it suffices for a military state prosecutor, I don't know whether it's right translation, commissaire du gouvernement, to say no, apologie de terrorisme.
Have you had journalists in Cameroon that have been termed terrorists because of the works they're doing? Has this law caught up with any reporters in Cameroon? Why was
Amos Fofon locked up in prison? He was arrested in
That was the case in
2016. 2016, 17. Amos Fofon was there. Atia Tilarios was there. I mean, we have had them. We have our Thomas is there.
And this scares other journalists like
this scares people from telling stories the way it should be.
We are going to look at that, but on the brighter side, I want to find out what are some of the stories you are telling in spite the difficult climate that you work in. What are some of the stories you're currently reporting on? What are you free to report on?
We do report. Even now, before I go into that even, let me give you this very good example of how he talked about how the authorities keep information close to their...
hoarding.
This is information that the public needs. In December last year, I did a story about the media and the law, which had...
I read
the story.
Yeah.
I did a story about the media and the law. I needed information from the Ministry of Communication. That's government spokesperson. The minister, I wrote to the minister. That was December 2020. December 2020, that is when I was doing the story. And May 2021, not even a call from the ministry to say, we saw your letter. I went to the minister, I said, I want to talk to the minister about this. I was directed to a director in charge. The director said, it is a good idea, but even if I am to talk, I should be authorized by the minister.
Hierarchy.
I need authorization from the minister. What I advise you to do is write to the minister, send your questions to the minister, then the minister will answer and send to you. Because I cannot talk to you when I don't have clearance. And if the minister deems it necessary, the minister is going to tell me to talk to you on behalf of the ministry. It is May 2021. I have, as it's just out of, I mean, I would have brought the letter here. I would have brought the receipt. You would have seen it. Till date, the letter was acknowledged as received by the ministry, but till date.
And this cuts across
this
across
means that,
all the
this
bases.
means that it cuts across all the ministries.
Because even in the regions, divisions,
there is another story.
A divisional officer who takes care of a subdivision will not talk if the SDO has not visa. The SDO will need clearance from the governor. The governor wants to call the minister.
It cuts across all
even
the
divisional
ministries.
delegates. So you see, following up developments of stories is very difficult. Take a recent case. We just had an accident along the Chang Sancho Road. Government said 55 people died, 53, then 2 others died again. Now, only 5 people were able to be identified. Now, journalists need to follow up the story to identify the corpses.
Right.
If you go to the governor of the West region now, he will not give you any development. These are things, we don't tell stories and we let them go. You tell the stories and you develop the story, you follow the development. Right up to the burial of those people
because the audience,
the people
that
need to know. Because most often we tell stories, but we don't follow them up. Look at the case of the Kumba school massacre. Yes, there was a killing for 7 students killed 24th of October. We need to follow them up. Now, what is happening to the families? What has government done? But if you go now...
And what stops you from following up?
No, that's what we're talking about, information hoarding.
Right.
Now, the proprietor of the school, the husband, all the teachers of that institution and the security person were arrested. They were locked up. The Minister of Territorial Administration, that of Secondary Education, Basic, they made some field trips. The Prime Minister went for official burial. Now, all this time that they went to Kumba in the Med Division, Southwest region, those people, the school authorities, they were still behind bars. What is the crime? They said they were protecting them. They were doing investigations. Now, what is the result of the investigation?
Several months
Did they have a hand in it? Were they in collaboration with non-state armed groups? The question, those are questions we need to know. Are they out? But if you go to the SGO will be feeling uncomfortable to talk to you because maybe the minister has not given him the right to say so. But every day when an element of the non-state armed group is killed, it is believed that he is part of those who did the act.
And so you have many stories that are hanging in the air, sort of. But those who usually hoard information say that it's because sometimes they don't trust the press enough. They don't trust that the press may handle the information well, or they may manage the information well. Does the press in Cameroon give some authorities reason to doubt them?
When first of all you give the press, let me just say the press, the opportunity to, you give the core that window for any Tom, Dick and Harry to enter.
To practice.
Yeah.
You
The
should
definition
be
of a
ready.
journalist in the country
Who is a journalist in Cameroon?
You should be ready to have information that comes from
those who are trained
sources,
to practice in this country
sources that are not
are
trustworthy.
gradually being pushed out by those who are now referred to as citizen journalists.
Because
now,
the definition of
with a
journalism is not
smartphone-
very
The
clear.
definition
According to the
is not
1990
very
law
clear. It's not very
freedom of
clear.
mass communication. A journalist is somebody who can.
The definition is not
gather,
very
treat,
clear,
and
and then because of political reasons, the market or the industry has been opened
It's very
in a
porous.
way that any politician sees a brother and feels that, no, this man will challenge me in the next election, create a paper, and then go and be distributing it in a village so that whenever I say something, it is understood there as gospel. Now, when another journalist comes to you, you think that he is like the other person.
Yeah.
That is where the problem is. Lack of political will to, make the industry to be that which can be trusted.
I tell you, if you just
So
compare
the lack
Cameroon and
of
Nigeria,
trust, the lack of trust is because you have the market, or the doors have been opened so wide, and you have too many people that are not journalists passing for journalists.
Journalists and
you are
publishers.
stating here that sometimes it's politicians who create.
I am saying it categorically
this? Yeah.
that many politicians, some of them members of government, own
they are media
newspapers.
organs. Yeah.
They own newspapers in which they say, I come from Cambe, for instance. If I have a political rival, if I'm a politician, I have a political rival in Cambe.
You create a paper.
Create a paper. The law does not stop me.
And the editorial policy
the law doesn't stop me from creating, no matter who I am. I just need to show proof of having 2 or 3 journalists, trained journalists to work, who are editors. I am a businessman, I'm a politician, but I can own a newspaper. I bring the 3 journalists who are jobless, because there are many of them there, they need the jobs.
And you indicate
And
headquarters
I
of the
tell
paper.
them, this is the editorial line of the paper. Anything about Nkambe should be said in this way. Now, when another journalist comes to me, I will have the feeling that he is just like that my own that I've kept somewhere.
So
Reason
it's,
why
it's so
there is
easy.
nothing like there is
It's so
there is
easy
nothing
to
like
create a newspaper in Cameroon, right?
It is very easy to create a newspaper in Cameroon.
And so many people are creating it and bringing in people that are not trained for their own political
interest.
And that's why we have this massive lack of trust in the press.
That is
because there are many
people do not even
charlatans
believe
in
in the media. Like if you look at the case in the US, former president will say fake news. It is because a particular media organ was targeting him and looking at him from a critical point of view. But he was seeing it as a media organ owned by a political group to target him. This is the same thing in the
and so you're seeing a lot of it in Cameroon.
Yeah, it happens a lot. Yeah,
and what are you as president?
I think it is happening in other countries, but it is more organized. We are not refusing that a press
in Nigeria, politicians buy space in the media organ. But in Cameroon, you just suffice for you to just...
We should first of all agree that a media organ can decide to take side. All right? To have their it is happening. In Kenya, you have the Aga Khans, then you have the others. No, it is happening.
Yes, Eugene.
But you take it side and you remain professional.
To bring us back to this context of World Press Freedom Day, which is tomorrow, you had an organization, an association of journalists that are credible and trained. What are you doing to sanitize the core in your region to make sure that you have the faith, especially of the people you serve, even if you don't get the faith of some politicians? What are you doing to sanitize? Because I hear from both of you, there are a lot of charlatans, there are people who are not qualified, there are people who are soiling the name of the press in Cameroon. How you sanitize it?
Yeah. The first thing we are doing, remember we just 5 months old in office. We were elected on January 9 this year. So the first thing we tried to do was try to get to the media organs to know who is who and where. The moment we know who is who and where, we'll now know that, okay, this is what this person is doing. Now we have introduced what we call monthly review. In our monthly review, we look at what we have done as journalists. Right. Now, if we look at it, then look at the respect, vis-a-vis respect for ethics, because that is where the problem is, the respect for ethics.
So it's a peer review.
It's a peer
kind
review.
Of thing where
we do it every month. That's the last Saturday of every month that we meet. We bring every topic that has met news. Then look at how News was reported, the Guardian Post reported, the Median reported, the Post reported. We look at all of those, and we have given our members an opportunity to always note, and we have a member who takes charge of that. That's Ian McDonald. He takes care of all the topics that people have listed, like this is what happened, this is what happened. We look at it, and we tell you to your face, look, this could have been better done this way. This could have been better done this way. With that, we grow as professionals. Right. And each time we have the opportunity, we tell the politicians that, look, not every journalist is a gutter journalist. We at Kamasesh, we are different.
Okay.
And we try as much as possible that this difference reflects in our members everywhere they go. Reason why I we do these professional talks.
The reviews.
The professional associations are trying their best, like he mentioned. But I think the best is not good enough for me.
Right.
It's a president, I'm here as a journalist. I think I should just tell him they need to get to work. It is not on their side, but government has to come in first. When you look at how journalism is practiced in neighboring Nigeria and what we have here, anybody cannot just get up and be a journalist in Nigeria. It is like a legal profession where
legislation.
Where they see your output, they
see
what you have been able to do before you are even admitted into the thing. But now, what they are doing is good. They do peer review monthly, and you monitor what colleagues do. But now, you monitor and you advise, but the editorial lines of some media organs will not change.
You can't influence.
So what we are saying is, it is now time for government to come in and see how they can bring a law that defines who a journalist in the country is, and put some rules and regulations that you must, in fact, some criteria that you must fulfill in order to be called a journalist. And with this, it would limit the number of, I call them encroachers. They are just coming, anybody just feels like, because of the advent of social media, can create a Facebook account. And it limits them. From there, you limit the number of people who are in practice. And then now, government gives media aid to media organs. Now, you make the media organs to recruit trained journalists. Because when you give media aid, subvention to media organs, and some of the media organs do not even have a single trained journalist. Some of the things are run like family business stores. And you go there, you see publishers put the names of their children instead of journalists. That's why
to receive media aid.
To receive media aid, but they don't have trained journalists. That is why you see what is happening, which is happening, because the economic life of a journalist in Cameroon is very poor, and they find themselves doing some kind of disgraceful things at the level of the regions and even at the national level. So I think government has to limit those who are to be called journalists, set a very strict criteria, and then the associations follow up and see how their membership. Because we have associations where even carpenters now are journalists. So we have to see how members of an association
we started off this conversation.
We will take a break. When we come back, we'll look at the welfare of journalists, what the associations are doing, and what government should do, and what journalists should do to make sure that a healthy journalist is a healthy press, healthy in every sense of the word. But before we get into all of that, we'll take a break.
Nous avons pensé. Pour mieux répondre à vos attentes, nous avons rehaussé le standing.
hôtel le Quai d'Orsay, better than what you imagine.
Ahead of World Press Freedom Day tomorrow, we have been talking about journalism in Cameroon, the state of the media, and we want to look more into the welfare of the journalists, because yesterday we just celebrated Labor Day, and before we took the break, Bertrand, you mentioned the issue of state aid and subventions to journalists. Eugene, this has been a topic that comes up every year, every time. Many publishers especially are disgruntled about how it happens, because those who are deserving say they don't get it, and it affects, you know, the welfare of their staff.
It boils down to what I was talking earlier about who owns the newspaper.
Right.
Now, since 2020, that's last year, the aid has been separated, because what they did previously, before 2020, was that the ministry gives what it calls aid. I will describe it in my own words later. It gives the aid to print, audiovisual, journalism associations, printing press, and all of that.
And this is taxpayers' money.
We are not refusing that they have to, but there was supposed to be a law that differentiates audiovisual from the print. And since the law is in gestation and is at the level of already being signed, from 2020 the ministry said they are going to separate. Now they give media aid, what they call government subsidy to private media, private print and online media. Then the audiovisual, there is an audiovisual law that's at the level of the Prime Minister's office, that's supposed to be signed. Then when it is signed, it will not take care of subvention that is being given to audiovisual. So it was separated. And also, associations were also separated from the aid since 2020. But now, who gets the aid is where we are driving to. I earlier said everybody creates. Information we cannot easily investigate, because we earlier said it is difficult to investigate, says that those who own the newspapers I made mention of benefit from the aid more.
Right.
In 2020, for instance, there is a newspaper, because one of the conditions is you should have published from January to December. There is a newspaper that is created in the middle of 2020. All right? That newspaper is giving aid more than those that have been publishing since January. How did it go? No one knows. There is this information that the technical secretariat of the media aid had selected based on the criteria and sent the minister 45 media organs, but the minister went and said they should give to over 80. So you should understand that if the minister is saying there should have been calls or discussions, this is information we cannot easily prove, but that has been circulating since the aid was given. We cannot easily prove just because there is no access to Information Act. It's as simple as that. It's information that the public needs. But since we don't have access to information, we don't have access to information in the country because of the law, and the politicians enjoy it that way, that is how it is. But I was using media aid because it is the legal name that is called government subsidy to private media. But this is an insult that is being given to newspaper publishers. A big insult.
Why is it an insult?
For me, you will not imagine that what we are talking about is the sum of 250 million. I think that is the maximum that has ever been given to the ministry. 250 million. We are talking about 250 million. Out of these 250 million, there are sessions that are convened, people meet, and then the money is taken from there. You know, they have to publish communiques in newspapers, which largely goes to the public media, the media that is already run by taxpayers' money. And at the end of the day, the peanuts left are shared to over 80 media organs, with a media organ, the highest, coming out with 3.5 million. I want us to do the mathematics together. A media organ is coming out 3.5 million. And that is a daily. A daily. A daily newspaper production cost per day is like 280,000. Production cost is 280,000 a day, which means that within 10 editions, you are at 2.8 million.
That's almost a media.
You are at 2.8 million.
Some of it, yeah.
When you publish 20 editions, you are at 5.2 million.
Which is already
means that,
over
which
the
means that
amount, yeah.
you cannot depend on media aid to print for a month, to produce for a month if you are a daily, and you are given that money. And it goes for all. No, I'm coming. Because sometimes he made mention of publishers. I feel bad as a publisher when he's saying publishers, it means all of the publishers. Because I did not hear him say some or something. He said publishers. Because that means I am indicted.
Eugene, I don't want to lose the thought on, I have heard publishers make these calculations of this is the aid we receive and it's grossly inadequate. You even call it peanuts.
It's peanut.
But I've also heard publishers say we receive very little aid and we publish government releases and communiques, and when we tender our bills, the bills are not paid.
That is a different issue. I want us to finish. Let me land on the issue of aid. What publishers, media owners have been clamoring for is a fund. It's a fund that is created. The budget is voted at the National Assembly. Yeah. It is done in Gabon, small with no malice. I mean, country size. It is done in Gabon. All right? And a media organ receives money that you can use to run your media for some time. It is, I mean, in Gabon, neighboring Gabon, it is done there. They have a fund. It was changed since 2015.
Yes,
they
so
were doing
we understand that
we have been clamoring here. Issa Chiroma, the former Minister of Communication, promised he was going to do that. Yeah. But till he left the ministry, he hasn't. And the person who has taken over seems not to be in a hurry to even look at where the file is.
So the issue of media aid is grossly inadequate, and we also have the issue of advertising to media organizations. It's very difficult for private media houses to get adverts, and when some get from government offices,
the money doesn't
the bills are unpaid.
So this boils down to poor working conditions, poor work conditions for journalists. Yes, because when the publishers do not get the money, they cannot pay their workers, and the reporters are the ones suffering. This is the issue. Government gives all the adverts to, for example, Cameroon Tribune, and these private media organs are expected to compete with Cameroon Tribune. But you give all adverts from state corporations, government bills, you give it to Cameroon Tribune to publish. I think the first thing to do is, the media aid is small. While they are waiting for the money to be maybe voted in parliament or the sum increased, the first step that government can take to reduce the financial burden of publishers is to limit the number of adverts that are given to Cameroon Tribune. Cameroon Tribune is run on taxpayers' money. When you reduce the number of adverts given to them, you share the adverts too.
I should come here as a publisher and give you some statistics, perhaps. There is a former prime minister in this country who it will take long for publishers to forgive him. Forgive me for saying so. Yeah. He is the one who introduced the issue of having tenders published only in Cameroon Tribune. Okay. But this, I should say, is a wrong and very misguided policy, just like other several policies in this country. There is, each edition of the state-run Cameroon Tribune has at least 8 pages of adverts from government. This is a paper that is already being run by taxpayers' money. And every year, take it, every year, for 12 months, Cameroon Tribune is paid 1 billion. 1 billion, that's 1,000 million, 1 billion. is given to Cameroon Tribune for those publications. This is what publishers propose. Instead of even giving what we are calling aid, let these adverts be shared, half to Cameroon Tribune, half to the private.
Yeah.
This means that the private will have 500 million.
Which is already more than the media aid.
It's
Which is
2
250
times
million.
more than the media aid.
Right.
So yeah,
The
because when they have it, the money will come to the publishers.
And they can do
the
better.
worst of it is, there is a tender for the construction of 2 classrooms, for instance, in Cambe, when Newswatch is regarded as their
Community
paper,
yeah.
and it is published in Cameroon Tribune that may not,
Get to
except for
Cambe.
the SDO that may have it, that may not get to Cambe. That is the worst thing about it. That's the most worrisome issue.
But, yeah.
You publish a tender for construction of a school in what?
An area where the national daily
And it has to
doesn't
An
look at
get
it.
area
to.
where Cameroon Tribune, you can publish that you want to construct Akko District Hospital in Cameroon Tribune. My God, who in Akko will see Cameroon Tribune in the next 1 year?
Yeah.
Who?
But you have papers from that. You have papers from
you
that
have to construct it in
community.
Abonshi, you have to construct it in Abafu, you have to construct it in JV, you have to construct in this. Who
And the
in
municipal
that area?
councillors of this country are
Who
supposed to
in
know
that area?
these
Yeah.
projects. But
No,
the
I
papers
get your
is not
point.
given.
And
Going
we're
to
saying
see
there
it.
are papers
Now,
that have
there are papers.
in these communities that the
There are
members of
papers.
the
Go to the
communities can
communities.
access.
Go to the communities you have.
But
Go
these
to,
papers
go to,
do
go
not
to
have
Akko
the
Council,
tenders.
for instance.
Right.
Go and enter the mayor's office and look on his table. You don't need to ask. Enter the mayor of Akko's office as we speak. Enter the sub-treasurer's office, Tache Frank, to name him. I've gone to his office several times. I've
Right.
seen the papers he's reading. I've
So-
never seen Cameroon Tribune.
So we're getting, it's important to get the government aid and the revenue, state revenue that goes into publishing tenders and all of that. Private media is
They need to
demanding
include private
that they
media
need to
into
be
it.
included, not just for the money, but also for the access.
For the access.
Those who
Yes,
need
yes.
to get this information, there's proximity, the issue of proximity
Yeah.
in media. But what this boils down to is that the private media does not have sufficient funds
funding,
to run. And I think you remember when the national president for the society, SNJC,
Yes.
Trade Union of
Trade Union
Journalists,
of Journalists.
he was on Twitter recently talking about the poor
Media organs
working
that were
conditions
almost collapsing.
that have
because
gone
of-
for months without paying their staff.
workers.
And
I think at times we blame publishers, but when you sit down with them and you listen to
Like
what they
Ndie-
go
like
through,
Ndie is
like
telling us
he's
now,
saying, you discover that it's a terrible situation.
it's difficult to
It's
survive.
very difficult for them to survive. At times, my boss will ask me, have you ever asked yourself where I get money to pay you? We'll call it stipend, it's not salary.
Yeah,
It's
because
stipend.
you're not getting adverts, you're not
Yes,
getting
the adverts are not coming.
subventions, and you have to
Adverts
pay
that
your
are,
staff.
he is
No.
from Manu, but you'll be talking about construction of something in Manu and the stuff is published in Cameroon Tribune.
Cameroon
They
Tribune.
don't have the adverts which brings money to it.
So how
to-
do you survive, Bertrand?
That
If-
is why
how
you
do
see
survive,
that is why you
Eugene?
see publishers come up every day and they do what they are not supposed to do. You see a government official may want to control a media organ because he is giving you something. So it boils down to what we see in the country. The media organs are not being trusted because somebody maybe is paying. They say when you pay the piper, you dictate the tune. We are not accusing publishers of receiving money elsewhere, but if you want to investigate where they make their money, you see that an official may want to support. And if the official is supporting, you don't want to investigate the official.
No.
If
I, as a publisher, let me. I think I can easily say.
Eugene, you have said it's difficult to get adverts. It's difficult to get state
You
subventions.
asked how we are surviving.
And it's difficult to
You- and
survive.
you
So
asked-
how
you asked
are
we
you
are
surviving? Yeah.
I want to tell you how we survive. All right? Because he says it may be difficult to investigate an official that gives you-
Who is bankrolling your
Who is
publication?
downloading the publications?
Let's understand it. I'm talking for my publication. I'm talking for my own.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
not
For others.
for
Of
all
course,
the
you can
publishers.
speak for
I
yourself.
am not the president of publishers. No, I represent all the publishers here. At Newswatch, we have public reportage that we do that are paid for. Amid the difficulties, we have at least 1 or 2 ministries which we are subscribed to. When you subscribe to us, obviously
You pay for
you pay
subscription.
for subscription, and if there is any advert, we are also priority. We have at least 2 state corporations. I mean, we at Newswatch. I don't want to be calling names. We have at least 2 state corporations which we are subscribed, and they pay for adverts.
So somewhat you have a revenue that's coming to you, and you're not suffering as much as the other papers that don't get this kind of support.
But how many adverts do you have from them in a year? That's the question.
That's a problem.
So at the end of the day, you're
how many
still
do you have from
struggling.
them in a year? And the worst part of it is, when do they pay? Yes, last year I have adverts from a ministry worth some good amount, but as we speak,
the non-payment of
as
bills.
we speak,
yes. I remember publishers were on a strike.
It is understandable. You remember publishers were on strike last year.
Non-payment of bills was an
bills.
issue, and subventions.
Newswatch was
And it all boils down to us.
Newswatch was among.
How do we?
Now,
how will
if I were
publisher
not-
pay the workers
If I
when
were
the
not,
money is not
if
coming
I were
from
not
government?
printing at a printing press where it's owned by another publisher that knows that I am being owed money that can pay him afterwards, I will not be able to go to press, to say the least.
So
in addition to that, we accept gifts, but not gifts that are influential. I want to be very honest. We accept gifts.
which kind of gifts? Is it a gumbo?
That's the name you call it. If that is what you call it, then I distance myself. But we accept gifts.
Okay.
All right? I don't think that for the good work done, Sisterspeak says we wish to appreciate and then we refuse. No.
But then these gifts, like you said, do not influence.
The
content
editorial
of it.
policy.
Will both of you say it is easier to practice journalism in Cameroon now than it was before? You've been journalists for quite some time now. Is it
different.
easier now? Is it easier?
It is becoming challenging on a daily basis.
It's more challenging.
Cameroon
for you.
has been referred to in the past as a peaceful nation, but from 2009, with the advent of the outbreak of the Boko Haram crisis in the north, you discover that journalists were operating there. You know, reporting crisis is something new in Cameroon. We are not up to 20 years in this thing. So journalists are trying to adapt to the crisis situation, reporting the challenges that come with our obnoxious media laws. Look at the northwest and southwest regions. The way people used to operate there, you don't operate there again in that manner. A journalist in the north and southwest can see something, and because you are afraid that the non-state armed groups will target you, you decide not to report. Because you are afraid that maybe state security will come after you, you decide not to report. So you discover that the context is different, it is challenging. Even the political landscape is becoming more and more challenging with the advent of social media. People say a lot of things now, and if you want to over-investigate, you do that at your own peril.
So for you, it's more difficult now than before. Eugene, is it easier for you as a journalist? There's a lot of technology, there are more opportunities and collaborations out of the country. Is it easier than it was before?
I would think it's a little easier. If I want to look at conversations I've had with those who've practiced since the 90s, like Kinisom, like Charlene Dicha, like Christian Ga, who I discuss with them on a daily basis, I think despite the difficulties, it is much easier now than it was before.
Okay.
Because literally, we don't have censorship. Though somehow it is still there, but we can do self-censorship. But at first, it wasn't done by us. Which is still bad, but it was worse before.
Okay.
So we shouldn't think that it is the worst, because remember, I am correspondent from Nation Media Group, and which is spread across East Africa. Uganda is worse.
Okay, so you think it's slightly,
if you want
the conditions
to
are better now?
Cameroon and Uganda at the
Cameroon
moment.
now and Cameroon before.
If you want to compare Cameroon now and Cameroon before 90s or
better.
early 90s,
it
is better to practice now.
Yeah.
And if you want to compare Cameroon now and Uganda now, Cameroon will still be a little better.
And anyone who, when I talk with colleagues out of the country, foreign journalists, they're very keen to know how, as a journalist, we are surviving COVID. and of course the insecurity, reporting different crises. You have a crisis in the Northwest and Southwest region, now you have COVID. How are you going back your work? How are you going about your work amidst different crises?
It's challenging, and you know, for the health situation that the whole world is, struggling to overcome. As journalists, what we do, we are human beings, like any other person. You begin by respecting the World Health Organization prescribed barrier measures, distancing measures, and other health measures, and we'll try as much as possible while respecting you teach by doing. You should not be on air saying something and in the quarters you have seen doing something else. And then
crisis?
for the crisis, we go as the time evolves, you try to feel yourself in the situation. In 2016, you could easily follow a crowd of protesters to get some feet, but now people don't even protest. And even if you are somewhere and people are protesting, for example, in the Northwest and Southwest, you try as much as possible to not to be at the middle of the crowd because you can be bundled up.
You're learning how to stay safe.
Yes, you try to develop your own safety tips that will make you not to fall into trouble. We try as much as possible. We as journalists, we want to belong to as many social media platforms as possible to get information, get scoops on what is happening. As a journalist, too, security people suspect us. They think that maybe you can be communicating to people they call terrorists or whatever. So you try as much as possible to ensure that even your mobile phone, does not have anything incriminating. You try as much as possible to stay safe in the real sense of the word.
We're going to take a break now and listen to other Cameroonian journalists around the world as they have their say on this special edition of Spotlight ahead of World Press Freedom Day tomorrow.
Hello, my name is Bill Titi Tuel. My heart goes out to my journalist colleagues on the occasion of World Press Freedom Day. It's become a difficult moment for journalists for the past years in Cameroon, with the advent of the Anglophone crisis. The terrain got too rough for journalists. We know of some of our colleagues who have died in the course of doing their job. Some have been tortured, some have been, maimed, some have had to go through thick and thin. So our heart goes out to them on this occasion. And for those of us who still have the gift of life, we encourage each and every one of us. Encouragement is what we need. It is now about Corona. The crisis is still ongoing. There is Corona. And we see ourselves having a lot to grapple with. And when we talk about Corona, this is a pandemic that doesn't know any boundaries. And this is a pandemic that has imposed its own rules. We talk about social distancing. And journalists have to also obey that rule, that measure. But how do you get information if you are at a distance, if you don't know where the action is taking place? It becomes so complex, so complicated. Yet, we need to have authentic information. We need to feed the public with what is good for their health. Information-wise. So please, it's challenging. It's not easy. We encourage each and every one of us. Let us do our best. Let's go for the best. We also have these other friends who have joined the profession, especially on social media, who broadcast without even getting to know the basics, getting to know the canons. They just broadcast, not even taking into consideration the sensitivity of what they are doing. And then the public that has been exposed to such kind of oppression, excuse my word. It's an oppressive context we are living in now. So please, it's a call for us to remain united, to remain professional, to stand tall and face the challenges. And I'm sure we'll do it because that's what we are trained to be. That's what we are trained to do. And we know just how to do it the best way. So the stories of our colleagues who have departed because of doing their job or even out of the field, out of the professional line, that may their souls rest in peace, and encouraging you and I to carry on and let the flame, the candle, keep burning. Happy Press Freedom Day to every journalist in Cameroon.
Hello, I am Pedmia Shitu. On this edition of World Press Freedom Day 2021, I want to acknowledge the strength and courage of all journalists who are practicing in conflict-hit zones, because every day we wake up to new challenges, be it explosives, be it smoking guns, be it intimidation, harassment, be it kidnappings, be it asking for ransom, be it, call it whatever you want to call it. We are faced with diverse challenges and we cannot sit back. Our pens need to flow, our voices need to be heard. We need to add our own quota to the national dialogue. We need to add our own quota to the discussions that are going on. How then do we add our voices if we are swallowed in these challenges? I look at a scenario where we as journalists cannot go about our daily activities because we are afraid of being arrested, we are afraid of being kidnapped, we are afraid of being tortured, we are afraid of being battered, we are even afraid of being maimed. All right? So on this day, what do we look at? We look at all these challenges and how we could rise above them. We are looking at a situation too where it is coming at a time when we are just from celebrating May Day, which is equally Labor Day. We go sometimes without pay. The private sector is not conducive. You cannot say that you're using it to put food on your table. These are all challenges. How then do we rise above that? We can only rise above that, fellow colleagues, if we exploit new avenues. We can only be creative enough to exploit new spheres for us. Carve a niche for yourself and you will be a better person.
Hello viewers of Spotlight, I'm Cominen Pomwe, a practicing journalist. This is just to extend my regards to all journalists out there on the occasion of the World Press Freedom Day. We are commemorating at a time where the world is grappling with challenges of COVID-19. For us journalists, it is another challenge on top of the many challenges we face as journalists in Cameroon. Today, I salute our resilience and encourage us all to continue to seek ways to report the truth and not cut corners because of the many challenges we face. Enjoy your day.
Welcome back, and we have had quite a conversation here with Do Bertrand and D. Eugene, very fine journalists in Cameroon. Tomorrow, we will all join journalists in Cameroon and around the world to commemorate World Press Freedom Day. And as we do so, Eugene, journalists in Cameroon, journalists in the association that you are president of, are reporting and working in very difficult contexts of they have the crisis, they have health crisis, security crisis. What is your advice to these journalists as far as staying safe is concerned? How do they stay safe while reporting in a very difficult context compounded by COVID and security issues?
We are the ones reporting the measures put in place by the government and the World Health Organization, and those measures are meant to keep us free. If as reporters, we should be first teachers, we should be an example, to follow it. Now, as that's the health
on the
aspect.
Health side of it.
The security part. Yeah, before journalists, I think authorities should understand that reporters are not supporters. And they need reporters to know. When you arrest a reporter, terming him a protester because he's covering a protest, it is wrong. It is wrong. Authorities should know that. Overzealous police and gendarme officers should understand that it is from news reports that policy makers will know what to do. Do not always think that reporters are supporters. The moment authorities understand this, reporters themselves know what to do on the ground, because they are not always, in most cases, I may not say all, in most cases, they are not always arrested because they are wrong, but because authorities just think they are supporters. For instance, imagine a Christian, a reporter who is a Christian and knows that by his or her faith, there is supposed to be no abortion. But there is a group of women marching out there that they should legalize abortion, and that reporter is sent to cover. He or she is going to cover the protest, but it is not that he or she supports the cause.
So journalism in itself is not a crime.
It's
That's
not
what
a
you're
crime.
saying. And journalists should be allowed to do their work. Bertrand, tomorrow is World Press Freedom Day. Briefly, what message do you have for your peers, other journalists in Cameroon, given the context that they work in?
The only thing I can tell my colleagues is we'll continue doing what we're doing, do it professionally, remain credible, ensure your integrity is intact, and let the authorities keep worrying. Because when your integrity has not been compromised, they can only suspect. We've had government ministers who have tagged media organs as belonging here or there, but those media organs remain straight. They just keep doing their work. You do their job and let the population decide if you belong anywhere. I think the only advice for colleagues is for us to remain professional.
Thank you very much, Bertrand. Thank you very much, Eugene, for being with us on Spotlight today. And to all the journalists in Cameroon, we are wishing you a happy commemoration and fruitful deliberations tomorrow. And we're looking forward to a Cameroon where when journalists tell the truth, it actually sets us all free and not set up the journalists. Happy World Press Freedom Day, and it's goodbye from us on Spotlight.